Yolanda, she also is one of our, we met yesterday, Miss D, who is one of our teaching artists emeritus, and Yolanda is another. She's been with DiAE since the very beginning, or maybe the second year.
Not quite, no, not quite. But I was there when Anne became the director
Oh,
the first time. I got the opportunity in the early 2000s to go with, I was chosen as the master teaching artist for the what's it called, the aesthetics education up at the Lincoln Center. And we we did 2 years of workshops, which I kind of ran quite a few of them, and other people ran them, and it was really very exciting. And we, as a kind of collective, decided that there were 4 elements to a residency to make it an aesthetic experience. And that's what I'm going to take you through, and I'm going to give you a kind of metaphor to kind of tie it all together. So what I want you to do, and I know some of you are new, I want everybody to write down on a piece of paper or on a note.
You need more post-it notes, or if you would like a full sheet of paper.
Or a sheet of paper, just let us know. And write down a residency that you have done or would like to do. So just write down like what that would be. If you're not sure what that is, don't worry about it, because I'll like talk you through it. But imagine a residency that you have done. And I want you to give me your discipline, maybe the focal work of art. What does hands-on mean to you? What do you think? Doing something that the kids are doing. Okay, for us. Okay, so that's what hands-on is. Anything else? Okay, let's just leave it at that. Inquiry. What is that? Questions, exactly. Questions. Anything else?
Are we writing?
No,
you don't
just
need
write
to.
it down.
You don't need to. It's just like, okay. It's okay. Contextual information. What might that be?
Any relevant information that they need to know if they go into this exercise?
Yeah. Okay, something that they might want to learn, or that you might want to unpack, or okay. So give me an example in a residency. Contextual information. So okay, what's your what is the residency you did?
Well, my contextual is really just different residency.
Okay, that's fine.
But one of my residencies is based on a book that they had read in the school, so I would have the book with me to reference and use as they went through it.
Okay, anybody else got another idea?
So we did a March on Washington
Yes.
residency, so they needed to understand the context of the March on Washington.
Great.
Talking about the civil rights movement.
Perfect. That's a great example. Anybody else got another
Yeah,
example?
I did
Yes.
a residency about the horseshoe crab, and so they were like young scientists, and they had the background in their science class to do to know specifics about the horseshoe crab, and then I brought in the story that I wrote after they had read the book.
Right. So the contextual information was that they had to know something about the horseshoe crab before they could really. Or you had to kind of unpack it in some way. You had to kind of embed it into the lesson story.
Yes.
And the last one is reflection. Can anybody give me an example of a reflective activity that they've done in a residency?
So what'd you think?
Okay, that's one way.
For the one I put down, we all in class got in a circle and everyone got a chance to talk about their project and their piece and what they did.
So you had an art residency.
Yeah.
So you're drawing or making something,
Yeah.
and then you're using words to describe what you've done.
Right.
So you're using like a different format to help you reflect on that activity.
Yeah.
Anybody else got a different one, like a different way?
So for a photography residency, usually I have them do an artist statement, but it's on like 4 images, and over the course of the residency, they've taken several. So a reflection activity for them is to go back and look at their images and decide if there's a particular theme, or if they just want to go for the ones they like with that, like what group of images do they want to represent?
Great. So they're writing a statement about the work that they've created, in which they're reflecting on that work. Anything else not using words that you might be able to do? Yes?
Sometimes in dance, if you're learning different concepts, you can improvise at the end as a reflection.
loves to let out, but actually it's a great way of just like moving your body and getting things out there. Anybody else want to? Yeah.
So we made puppets.
Yes.
And then the students made PSAs, like public service announcements, using their puppet to like talk about water safety.
Great, great. So you're kind of like channeling a voice, a new voice. Okay. Great. So I like to think of this. Came up with this metaphor that being a teaching artist is like being a stage performer, regardless of which art you're doing. It's like being a stage performer. You're up there in front of the kids and you're kind of like doing your piece, and you need a spotlight. The spotlight is made up of white light, which is your hands-on activity. Okay, so that has the permanent. That is part of everything that you do. Hands-on is the most important thing in a residency. That is where we're at. Is we're giving them an experience, and we're giving it a hands-on experience through our discipline, through the discipline that we have. But when we split white light, we can have, if we're like on the stage, on the theatre, we can have different primary lights that make white light. So unlike when you're mixing colours, when you mix all the colours together in equal amounts, you get white light. But you can separate them out, and you can put a filter on. So we're going to start with a filter of green. And the green is going to be the inquiry, because we need a supervillain. So we're going to use the Riddler, question mark. Okay? So these are the questions that we're going to ask. So you can look at the whole residency through that lens of the green Riddler thinking about it. Okay? So then we come to the contextual filter. The contextual filter, I like to think of it as like the infrared, seeing something at night, seeing the underlying structures. You may never have them said explicitly, but sometimes when you're doing archival work and you want to know what's happened before in a place, they have to kind of like scan it and the land and see it. They can see under the trees and they can see what actually went on there. And that's kind of like what the contextual information is in our residencies. They may be like really deep and dark issues. We don't want to bring all of that up in the residency, but we know that it's lying there. We understand what the structure is behind it all. So let's use the Joker, who has that dark backstory. So to kind of like remind us as a supervillain for that one. And then our last supervillain is blue, and we'll use the blue man, Dr. Manhattan, for that, for the reflection. So reflecting light and reflecting on the activity. And I like to think of this as, when you're looking at something, an object, for a kind of concentrated amount of time, and then you move your focus of gaze, you see an after image, and it's the same shape as the image that you've been looking at, but it's in a complementary color. So this helps us kind of see the whole kind of everything more clearly, because we see like the negative image of it. If you've ever looked at negative images of colored photographs, they're the complementary colors because they're blocking out those lights in order for us to see the light. So in order for us to be able to see red, we have to block out all of the green and the blue light that is absorbed into the piece, and only the red light bounces back at us. Okay, so that's kind of like the structure. So let's see how that could work and why it might be useful in let's go round and see. So I'm going to give you a few minutes just to think through that and come up with, some questions. The hands-on activity, so even if you're new and you've never done this before, think of a residency that you might do, and then think of a hands-on activity, think of some inquiry, which means just questions that you're going to ask. Think of what you might need to unpack in order to give contextual information, and then think of a little activity that is a reflective activity. So I'll give you a few minutes to just kind of jot those down, and then we'll go through and give a few examples and see if we can unpack it. Kate, would you mind just telling us what your residency that you were thinking of was?
Yep, so I was thinking about, I'm like a puppet lady, so one was my many puppets, so particularly the moving mouth puppets, which was the Hua Hua Chinese. Hua Hua, sorry.
Yeah.
Hua Hua's Chinese puppetry was the Focus Arts experience. So the hands-on part was physically making a moving mouth puppet, so sewing and things like that. In my inquiry, I broke it down into my artistic, performative, and educational. So I had how to sew, how to use a pattern, like thinking in that inquiry.
Okay, so give me, so the kids are making their things. Give me a question that you can ask children that's actually going to help them think about. Just give me a question that you would ask in a residency like that.
What is something else that we know that we is a sewn piece of thing? So we could like relate to like
Okay.
what the.
Okay, now everybody, think of a question that you would ask about this puppet. Like you're not doing that residency. So what question would you like to know? So anybody, just popcorn
How
answer.
does a puppet tell a story?
How does a puppet tell a story? How do we get the mouth to move? How do we get anything else?
How does it work?
How does it work? How does it work? Yeah. How are we going to get this to actually work? Okay. So those are kind of questions. Okay. And now I'm going to go. Let me give someone else a chance. Anybody who else would like to share their residency? Yes.
I did a visual art, and I did a mosaic collage with the Spirit Academy, and
I love that piece.
should I just say more? Oh, what did I have them do?
Yes.
I had each student take a 10 by 10 sheet to create a portion of the mosaic collage by classroom, and then each level of the collage was the sky, the building, the grass, and the
Dirt.
The dirt. And ironically, well, not ironically, but what happened, I think, is, after I finished, I realized, like, wait, this could have been, like, a deeper ways to go into some things. So what I wrote down for inquiry was, how does line, color, and shape influence or inform our understanding of what an object is? Where, this is an orange, right? But if I put black lines on it in a certain way, it could look like a basketball. Same for if you see an orange in a magazine, yes, it is an orange, but the color can be used to make that object into something else. And I think that was something that students initially needed to, thought they had to find dirt. But it's like, no, you can find things that are a similar color or texture or look of dirt, and use these things to have these items in a certain shape, and that will inform people's mind to think that it is dirt, or it is a flower, or it is whatever other object.
So that is the underlying, your underlying line of inquiry in the lesson plan was, how do I get them to think more deeply about images? So yeah, that's your line. That's the end result that you want. What might be a question you would actually ask the student to help them get there?
I would say probably a series of questions.
But just think of one very simple question, like a child. Let's say in second grade, what question would you ask? Okay, but you know what? Okay, anybody else? What would you ask a 7th grader to make them think more deeply about the earth, about representing the browns? Is that what you want? Like the browns, the ground.
What is something in this classroom that could represent dirt?
That's a great question. Yeah. Anything else? Yeah.
What are some qualities of dirt? Like, is it soft? Is it smooth? Is it rough? Is it hard? Like, getting them
So we might, for a small kid, we might say something like, when you put your hand on the earth, what do you feel? And we might get some really great responses. The soft grass, the wet mud. Yes.
Okay, I was having a moment of insecurity, but.
No.
All right,
You did
so,
great.
what are some objects that are a certain color?
Okay.
What are some, like?
So if it's brown, like, point to some brown objects.
Right.
Something that could be simple. Like,
Right.
we'll just want, like, we're trying to get the kids to engage on a deeper level. So we can use very simple language, very simple ideas to make them think at a deeper level. So
Right.
how are we going to do that? That's just basically what we're trying to do. So let's go to contextual material. Has anybody got a good example of something that they wanted to, that will help them? Well, I'm actually, does anybody have one? Yeah.
For my, I forget what it was called, but I'm gonna call it my step up residency, was about the Wilmington riots. And so we provided pictures of the riots as well as pictures from, I think, the march,
On Washington?
to Montgomery or on Selma.
Oh, okay.
Just pictures of protests, specifically pictures of the Wilmington ones, since we were trying to keep it in, grounded in Delaware mindset.
And what age were you?
This was 4th and 5th graders?
Sorry?
4th and 5th graders.
4th and 5th graders, okay. And are there things that, like, in the contextual information that you didn't want to share too much? Like,
I didn't want the overall feeling to be one of pain.
Yeah.
Or one of anger or being upset. I wanted it to be more focused on the strength of the people.
Good.
And what using your voice and your body can do for making your statement heard.
I love that example. Yeah, yeah. So we all know that, Wilmington was under martial law for 9 months back in the just after Martin Luther King and was murdered. And so it was a horrible time for Wilmington. And I think Wilmington, you can still feel that. You can still feel the vibrations of what happened there. But we don't want to bring that into 4th graders particularly. So we have to, use a kind of a framing of empowerment of the people and kind of how the people get heard to help us kind of deal with it. It's not that we're ignoring this, we're just putting it into an appropriate example, okay? So I'll give another example. So I was given the job of getting children to work on to look at the Howard Pyle pirate series, the pirate paintings that are at the Wilmington Art Museum. And so what I had, we made a comic thing, and what I did is I read to them the pirate code. And the pirate code is the first example of democracy. So on a ship, and they got to make their own rules. The people got to make their own rules. They didn't have an autocracy or a monarchy telling them how they were going to live their life, because they're already outlaws. And so rules are really interesting, because the reason rules are written is because they're broken. So when you look at rules, you can see how the society was. It gives you like a really good reflection on what that society is like. And so by reading the rules, they understood their life of the pirates. And then when they looked at the paintings, they could see what Howard Pyle was portraying. They didn't have to read Treasure Island, which actually even wouldn't even have had all of the information there. They actually kind of understood there's a painting where people are sitting or kneeling on 2 sides in the sand. And this was when the captain is standing up and there's a treasure box. And there was, this is how they did the dividing of the treasure. And so as soon as they saw that picture, they understood, oh yeah, this is the dividing of the treasure. This is when the captain gets to hand out the treasure equally among just to give you sort of like some things that you can think about that really kind of help you go deeper into a residency. Okay, I think we are probably done, probably fried, but do get a chance to, I'm sure you came up with some really brilliant ideas, and that hopefully this will really help you. And I want to say personally, although I'm stepping down, I'm always here for you guys. If you
Stepping down, I mean,
Yolanda's not
I'm not
gonna be in the classrooms
classrooms anymore. Yeah, I made a decision not to be in the classrooms. I just sort of feel, is my youthfulness? I feel kind of like I need to step down, but I am here for you guys. If you ever want to call, you're having trouble with a residency, trouble thinking about how to write the lesson plan, or you're stuck, I'm more than happy to listen to what your lesson plan is, or send it over to me. I'll kind of have a look through it, and hopefully, I know you're all going to do really well, and I also want you to know that Suresh and I financially put money into the Delaware Institute for the Arts and Education because we believe in it so much. We want children in Delaware to have hands-on experiences with real professional artists coming into the schools. It matters to us tremendously. It enriches the lives of the students of Delaware, and all of that matters to us tremendously. So I just want to.
so are you gonna just paint and do your
Yeah,
thing?
exactly.
And just paint, are you gonna be working,
Yeah.
focusing on your
Yeah,
art?
yeah.
Well, thank you for being here.
How we are using inquiry. Yes, I can teach you whatever exactly the dance is, but our goal is not for me to teach you the thing. It's for you to learn about the thing enough to be able to make your own decisions about it. Yes? Yes, you need to know what the context is. And this one is always super hard because sometimes the context is like, well, I don't know about the War of 1812. Is there a war of 1812? Is that
Yes.
It came out and I was like, that feels like I'm the right number, but I don't even know it's the right number. But so I went and like check myself about the War of 1812. But Yolanda gave us a super like, oh, you have to follow, we use the pirate code because we're looking at all these pirate pictures, and that helped us give the students a little bit more contextual information. And then reflection, really finding opportunities for the students to kind of debrief on whatever it is they did, assess back on whatever they did, think through whatever they did, and using multiple modalities, finding a way. Maybe we're doing a dance thing, and so our reflection is going to be a drawing. Maybe we did a visual art thing, so our reflection is going to be
A statement.
or a song.
Yeah, or a title, or
Yes.
so it can be very simple. Yeah.
I was gonna say for my dance on the DCC, for this one specifically, which I think was really good, was I did Roses and Thorns. And after being standing up
Yes.
and everything, a lot of the time we were outside also. So just after being standing up in the sun and all of that, we all just like sat down at the tables with a piece of paper, and I had them just like sit and write and reflect upon that.
Do you do roses, thorns, and buds?
I did not do that.
Buds is like something that you're hoping for and aspiring.
Yoink.
Write it on your post-it note and stick it on the wall. See, now I'm saying it more.
I think those different modes of reflection might be the most user-friendly components for a teacher to pull forward.
Yes.
Particularly for when you guys are rolling into non-arts teacher spaces. Much of it could feel very new to, say, a history teacher. But that way of reflecting with the different modalities could be something that they could incorporate and continue on in their practice.
And remember that as a teaching artist, 90% of what you bring in is yourself. Like, all of this is just the 10% extra. You're really bringing yourself into that space. That's why I'm exhausted.
That's why she just wants to paint.